Vivek Ramaswamy joined CNN for a town hall. Today I'll analyze the questions and Vivek's answers. That's coming up here on the Jonathan Lovegrove YouTube channel. Now, to analyze this event, I want to look at 3 different questions that were given. Each can provide some valuable takeaways. So let's get started with the first.
Thank you, Abby. Thank you also for spending time with our students at Drake. As a professor, I think it's super important that we get that opportunity, so thank you for spending time with them. As president, what specific strategies would you implement to promote diversity and inclusion in leadership roles within both public and private sectors? How do you plan to support the advancement of underrepresented groups, including women, in these areas?
Okay, so I want to first point out that the question here, we're on CNN, and the question is presented from a more left-leaning viewpoint on equity. Now, this is really interesting because the fact that the question is liberal-leaning and it's coming from a college professor actually plays into Vivek's answer. So let's keep on watching.
So I'll be very honest with you. I'm going to share with you Thomas Sowell quote that stuck with me. If you care about somebody, you tell them the truth, or at least what you believe. If you care about yourself, you tell them what they want to hear. And I have a feeling I'm not going to tell you what you want to hear on this one.
Okay, this is a very good point by Vivek. Sometimes we see politicians craft a message in the primary and then shift to a different message in the general. I get that it's hard. It's hard to win elections. You have to be strategic, and you do have to adapt to audiences. At the same time, you have to keep your core message consistent. When your core message shifts, that's really a bad sign for politicians.
So I think the diversity, equity, inclusion agenda has been abused. In the name of diversity, we have, at many of our universities, totally sacrificed diversity of thought. In the name of equity, we've perpetuated a lot of inequity and inequality of opportunity through affirmative action and otherwise. In the name of inclusion, we've created a new culture of exclusion where certain points of view aren't welcome. So especially in a university setting, what do I care about? Diversity of viewpoint. This is important, actually. I think diversity of viewpoint is part of what this country was built on. Well, the best way to foster diversity of viewpoint is to screen candidates for the diversity of their views, actually. Many look at the board members of many universities. You're going to go through their partisan affiliation. It's not 80-20. It's going to be like 90-10 in the other direction.
So that's a great point. And once again, this question actually proves his example here, that 9-to-1 ratio. So I think it's a great point he's making here, and he goes on to talk about how you have to hire based on merit, and how merit-based hiring eventually leads to a form of diversity that's not focused solely on skin color. I think he makes a very persuasive case here, and that was a good answer to a more left-leaning question. So let's move on to the next question.
She says that she's currently registered as a Democrat, but now intends to switch parties and is planning to participate in the Republican caucuses and register as a Republican. She's undecided on which candidate to support. Nicole?
Thank you and welcome. I'm going to throw it back to the United States and talk a little bit about how you feel about the growing differential between the top 1% and the middle class in the U.S. and how you plan on addressing it in your presidency.
Well, first off, I think it's excellent that this young lady is considering leaning more to the right, becoming a Republican. That's great to see. Republicans need to be reaching young people, and that's actually a strength of Vivek. Now, to address that question, let's see where Vivek takes it.
Yeah, great question. And to tell you the truth, I don't feel great about it. A lot of this is the product of the Federal Reserve, actually. It seems like a technical subject a lot of people don't like to talk about. I think this is fundamental. So the Federal Reserve has, since the late 90s, taken on the role of playing effectively God for the financial system. For a lot of that period, raining money from on high like manna from heaven. We've been skiing on artificial snow, and it's really flowed down through the top 1%.
So right here, Vivek is making an excellent point. He mentioned it seems nerdy, but the reality is that many of the problems in our nation are caused by overreaching bureaucracy. That's happening on the financial stage, but that's happening all across the federal government. The executive branch is getting bloated. So I'm glad Vivek is bringing attention to some of these topics. You see a lot of politicians, they go on the cultural, sensational issues, but sometimes we have to talk specifically about those federal agencies that are the responsibility of the president. So great job, Vivek, taking that question in that direction. Now to the last question, and this question right here is what got up the most controversy on social media. This right here was a heated question. Take a look.
You used the phrase inside job to describe what happened on January 6th. The next day, Capitol rioter Alan Hostetter highlighted your comments at his sentencing. He is going to prison for 11 years. Hostetter threatened members of Congress. He brought a hatchet, knives, pepper spray, stun batons, tactical gear to the U.S. Capitol. Are you concerned that a convicted felon like that is now promoting your comments in court?
Now we come to January 6th. The reality is we know that there were federal law enforcement agents in that field. We don't know how many. I think it's shameful. If I may finish just answering.
Well, let me
this is really important.
I'm going to go ahead and interrupt you here because
I know the establishment doesn't approve of this message. I know
there were federal
we should be able to talk about this.
You're saying that there were federal agents.
This is important to talk about.
You are saying there were federal agents in the crowd on January 6th.
Yep.
There is no evidence that there were federal agents in the crowd on January 6th.
So why, before Congress, when pressed on what the number was, they didn't say there were none? They just couldn't say how many there were.
So you're saying that that you have not seen any evidence that there were.
We've seen multiple informants suggesting that there were. We know people were FBI informants who were asked to
Is there any evidence?
May I just finish this and you can come back and question me?
Well, let me clarify.
I know it's very uncomfortable for you.
I'm going to clarify my question.
I know this is an uncomfortable issue for many people, but we have to do the truth here.
I'm going to clarify my question because I want to make sure that you understand what I'm asking.
I understand this deeply. And I told you, I was with you 3 years ago. I'm not there now.
Where is the evidence?
Yes.
Where is the evidence that the government had a plot?
So let's do this.
An inside job.
But no, I'm going to tell you what an inside job is because I'm not
violence on January 6th.
I'm not going to let you put words in my mouth. I'm going to put my words in my mouth. And I'm going to tell you what I mean by that.
Where is the evidence that the government was involved in planning or executing January 6th?
So I'm going to give you hard facts. And if I may, Abby, I know this is going to be a little uncomfortable, but we're going to go through this and you can push back on it.
So this right here, I really don't like how this question went. A few things. One, is it fair to call January 6th an inside job? Probably not, but that's still up for debate. What I really dislike is that the moderator here is interrupting, interjecting. In this situation, I want to say, let Vivek make his point. If you're going to do a correction, wait till the end or later. We have to have speech in America. This is a leading presidential candidate. Listen to what he has to say. I think the moderator did a very poor job handling this question, whether or not Vivek is correct on this point. Thank you for watching this video, and make sure to subscribe so you never miss future content.